Okay, welcome to another episode of Black Representation in the curriculum where we have discussions about teaching, culture, equity, and belonging. Today, I'm truly thrilled to have our guest, Keeana Saxon. And coincidentally, I have to say something. We both did a similar TEDx, right? uh, which was interesting to see. And so, we'll get into talking a little bit about that. But welcome to another episode. And why don't we start off by you talking about yourself, who you are, your career, your schooling?
Sure. Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for having me. And I loved your TEDx. And yes, there is much alignment. Um, yes, Kiana Saxon, the CEO and founder of Kidogo Productions. Kidogo Productions is a startup. We are a children's media and education startup designing learning kits for daycares. We focus on preschool material that centers the African diaspora, and we are in digital, print, and live. We have digital, print, and live experiences. Schooling. I was born in DC, raised in Newton, Massachusetts. So I went to Newton elementary schools, middle school, high school, and then I had the wonderful opportunity through a presidential scholarship to attend Spelman College. And so I graduated in the very last year of the 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a music major, actually. I was
Mm-hmm.
a classical piano performance major and a French minor.
Mm.
Another wonderful opportunity to study abroad when I was in college. I was in Paris and I came back um, w- w- understanding that music would not be my full-time path. The becoming a solo musician was very you were alone a lot, 8, 9,
Wow.
10 hours a day in the practice
Yeah.
room. And I was like, I love people. So I know I need to do something that gives me time to be around people.
Wow.
I ended up after college not quite figuring out what I was going to do for that first year. So I worked for a hotel. I was an executive assistant, sales manager at a hotel, and then through just a series of um, events and organically unfolding curiosity, I ended up getting accepted into law school,
Oh,
and
congratulations.
um, and I graduated from law school in the early 2000s. So being a lawyer has been a fascinating
Mm,
journey. Um, some of it I have loved, some of it I have absolutely abhorred.
mm.
All of it I have appreciated. And currently, along with being an entrepreneur, I'm the commissioner for the city of Boston, one of the commissioners for the licensing board, which, we handle liquor licensing and food licensing. And I
Mm.
did make a return to music. And I am a music teacher. So
Nice.
in all of my spare time, which is not like a lot these days, because
Yeah.
I'm also a mom and a wife, I teach in the evenings. I have beginner and intermediate piano students. I love
Nice.
being able to take a student from the barest, the foundation, from the absolute beginner level,
Mm-hmm.
and bring them to a level of understanding and appreciation.
Wow.
That is actually the through line that helps me with Kidogo, is that I really appreciate and go after that twinkle, that
Mm-hmm.
those little tiny aha moments.
Yeah.
It's I live for that.
Wow. It looks like we have so much in common there.
Mm.
We'll have to talk about the music thing one day.
Sure.
Yeah, because I had tackled that at one point. My goal at the time was to be a songwriter.
Mhm.
And so, and you were talking over 26 years ago.
I love it.
Joining BMI and writing some music and paying to have it recorded.
I
I
love
did,
it.
yeah, and I did publish two, but I have six more that I didn't release. And I'm thinking one day I'll just release them and put them into the wind. But they're in part of it. Part of one is in the introduction to this podcast.
That is amazing. So I'll definitely, yes, I'll have pay more attention the next time I listen to it. That's great.
Yeah. But
That's amazing.
wow, quite a journey. And, I think one of the beauty of that I can think of when it comes to education is being interdisciplinary and so
Mm,
multifaceted. I think is
mhm.
so important.
Yes.
But I think you and I have some bigger things in common, things we think about when it comes to parenting
Mm,
and Blackness, right? And
mm.
what that
Mhm.
means, and in some ways plague us and led both of us to do a TEDx talk, right?
Sure.
And to
Yeah,
even launch very similar education companies to tackle some of these. Even
yeah.
though I'm already in education, I felt that I needed a different type of audience in addition.
Mm.
So I want to talk to you about that. Just really about, you can start wherever you want when it comes to parenting and, what were some observations and things like that.
Parenting is a very humbling experience. I will start with that. I am the mother of one.
Mm.
She is now 10 years old. Um, and you said you didn't allow your son to watch TV until he was about 5.
Mhm.
I started when she was about 2.5.
Okay.
So, um, it and the
Wait.
I was trying to be as careful
Right.
as possible with what kind of content it is.
Mhm.
And, but retrospectively, I think I was very naive,
Mhm.
because I was raised on, Reading Rainbow,
Mhm.
um, the Sesame Street,
Yeah.
um, uh, 3, 2, 1 Contact. I
Okay.
remember that. It was like there's some PBS shows that were on in, like, the 80s that just were fabulous.
Mm.
And the Bill Cosby Show, quite frankly, I loved
Mhm.
the Cosby Show.
Mhm.
Rudy
Yeah.
was I really saw myself in her.
Mhm.
And also Oprah. I mean, my
Mhm.
my parents watched Oprah, and so I sat there
Right.
and watched Oprah too. So I
So,
did not go ahead.
what was your thinking? What was your thinking? You said, okay, go ahead. You were probably
That I
about
was
to say
naive.
that.
I did not have an appreciation of how, unwholesome? That's not a word, but just how lacking and devoid
Mhm.
the content has evolved to be.
Yeah.
And I think that, in each era, you have the older generation saying, "Back in my day,
Mhm.
we had true quality in programming and in entertainment." We see the evolution of gospel, we see the evolution of rhythm and blues, we see the evolution of R&B. I mean,
Mhm.
those are in each generation, there's complaints about the lack of quality in the next generation.
Mm.
I truly felt the same way about screen content, about television content.
Mm.
There's a plethora of it.
Mhm.
It's just a lot, and with that amount comes an extraordinary amount of low quality programming.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and and I
yeah.
just didn't have an appreciation of that.
Yeah. I guess I'll tell you for me, um, when I looked at the content, which I looked at it differently. You look at it differently when you have a child. You
Mm,
begin to see all of the signs of consumerism, right? That the
yeah,
goal is just to get your child hooked. And it,
absolutely.
it gives you the sense that the people who are creating it are not people who have children's best interests in mind, right? It's just these guys behind or who in the background writing up these things. They really were adult content masquerading and pretending to be good for children. Let's
Yeah.
just say it. And it's still the case because a lot of these companies and a lot of these places, the goal is to hook them while they're young.
Mm,
And so we can see the manipulation, right?
mm,
And the things that are being done, not everybody can, because especially if you think that everything is done for your good, you probably will not see it
mm,
until it's too late, until your
exactly.
child is aimless and wonderless and as scattered as the movies.
Yeah.
And so when I looked at them, the only one I thought that was really for children, to be honest, was Mr. Rogers, I was just very
Sure,
picky, you know.
sure.
There were things that he was one of the first that I introduced him to, and when I introduced him to TV, I didn't really quite even introduce him to TV. It was more specific shows I picked
Yeah.
that were in YouTube because it's almost like introducing your kid to alcohol at an early age, right?
Mhm.
Can you imagine introduce your kid to alcohol when they're 11, 13, and they start drinking it like it's nothing, and or even drugs, right? You get so addicted. The addiction concept for me, I saw it there.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was my thinking. Go ahead.
And I think there is intention behind that. I think that there
Mhm.
are scientists and sociologists and psychologists who work for the companies
Yeah.
who understand, and the same thing happens with food, who understand how children's brains work,
Mhm.
and they're using it to their advantage.
Right.
And it's in this capitalist society, it's really all about profit.
Right.
So, and I think there's a nostalgia that I have for for older shows, but it's there too. Care Bears
Mhm.
was there to sell the bears. you
Yes.
know? So as we talk about, the quality, and at the time, I loved the values that it seemed to reject, but
Mhm.
I also wanted a Care Bear. And first, all
Mhm.
of them were about it was eventually about the sale of the toy.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of design. There's a
There
lot of
is.
attention and design with that.
Oh my gosh. And something I tell my son now that he's older, you'll find anybody on both sides of the camp to give you evidence of either, right? And for me, the proof is looking at you and how you're responding, in that moment and having the ability to forecast what's going to happen later, which I'm able to do because, I've taught high school, I taught
Mhm.
college, and, you begin to see, okay, this 5-year-old you is going to become that 13-year-old you. Not everybody has that luxury or wisdom to be able to forecast that your
Right.
child is going to be aimless, wanderless, and scattered later on. And then we're talking about these crisis of men. Like, what did you
Yeah.
expect? You created that
Right.
because the focus was money, right? The focus
Mm.
was the love of money, right?
Mhm.
And and now we're trying to, what I observe now is we're trying to use this crisis of men to redefine what should be childlike so that these particular men have a place in society where they can earn, even if it means manipulating and drawing our children in for their own gain.
Mm.
And so the cycle continues. I'm sorry. You see how I get going? The
Yeah.
cycle continues, and our children become the prey to these thinking that people think you might not be aware of.
Well, so yeah, consumerism is one of the intentions behind some of this content. But as you said, they're also promoting a person who lacks critical thinking skills.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Discipline.
promoting a sense of belonging, which is the word that you use in your TED Talk, but a sense of belonging for the I guess in the context of a clique or
Mm-hmm.
in a group that is
For the
used.
majority.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's not about it's not about belonging at the soul level, it's about belonging at the superficial level.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
are
Which is very
you buy the
dangerous.
same clothes? Do you wear this the do you want the same car? Do you
Mm-hmm.
so it is very dangerous.
Right.
And
Very
I
dangerous
and it
because you don't see it coming. Sorry. Go ahead.
exactly, and I think that it does, affect, girls and boys, differently, but it
Mm-hmm.
is a witch's brew because they have to go together.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a critically thinking boy with with a non-critically thinking girl. They that's not a pairing that would work. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
have both pairs, and whatever pairs that you want to make up, where two people are lockstep in this haze of not really looking at the world with the eyes that they should be looking at it,
Mhm.
which and the eyes that we want our children to have are, I see a problem and I want to use certain gifts in order to solve the problem. And that gives me that sense of purpose. That's what we
Mhm.
want, I believe, for all of our children, for them to be these productive members.
Mhm.
But in order to be a productive member, you not only have to know yourself, but you have to be able to understand and look at your environment with these critical eyes.
Mm.
And none of those it's rare that the content will encourage you to do that.
No. Critical eyes, like, what is that? That's boring.
Yeah.
The thinking is
And
that's boring.
well, it's not only boring to a child who doesn't see the excitement of being a problem solver,
Mhm.
but it's also sad because, it's almost like you're asking them to be stripped of what they think will make them happy. And
Mhm.
so, again, consumerism tells people that happiness is in what you have, not
Mm.
who you are.
Mhm.
Or not
Yeah.
it's not in the gifts that you have and that you can share. It
Mhm.
is what you can obtain, the
Yeah.
things, and how many likes you can get from the things that you have. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a scary part too.
so scary. Like,
Very.
what Instagram and YouTube, it's almost, this long running commercial of,
Mhm.
like, "See? You see what I have? Like
Mhm.
me for that."
Right.
And so we go and we compare ourselves to this other Jones family and that Jones and this Jones
Mhm.
because of the house that they have, the car that they have,
Mhm.
the things that they have in the girl's bedroom, the things that the boy has in his garage.
Mhm.
It's all just like it's all fabricated so that you feel bad about yourself until you go out and buy.
Mm-mm-mm. Unacceptable. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, um, you mentioned something about belonging, and what a dangerous concept, especially for our children. And again, this whole show is about what do our children, our Black children, need. This false sense of belonging. It's the part I've struggled with, and I think I've kind of figured out somewhat of a formula, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say. The idea of belonging or feeling like you belong because you have these superficial things, which, thanks for phrasing it that way, that superficial things in common, only to realize that when, time always reveals, you think you're someone or someplace that you're not. And so
Mhm,
always comes back to, well, what do our children need to know that's different,
mhm,
from what the majority children need to know,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Without necessarily stripping away their sense of self, or without making it negative, because that's also kind of like a delicate balance, right?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I I think it takes a number of different kinds of educators in order to help a child to come into their own. There's no
Mhm.
one educator who can do it.
Mm-mm.
So you're at the high school and college level, I'm at the preschool level.
Mhm.
Someone's gonna be at the elementary, someone's gotta be at the middle school. And then, that's just by age, but
Mhm.
we also need to do it by subject, by interest, by skill set,
Mhm.
by learning style.
Mhm.
Uh, there has to be almost an army of educators and or a
Mhm.
village
Yeah,
in order to raise
absolutely.
a child so that that child becomes a fully realized human being.
Mhm.
I know that I can't do it on my own.
Yeah.
Uh, Kidogo has become a team, which
Mm.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Because I know that I don't have the right perspective on everything. I don't have the breadth of skills that are needed
Mhm.
in order to bring products forward. I know
Yeah.
that I don't have the breadth of experience that is required to bring educational products forward.
Mhm.
So I think if we were to remove ourselves from, I don't know, I don't know whether it's a North American way of thinking. Like, I think the industrial era has brought about like this nuclear family, where we only are relying on one mom, one dad,
Mm.
and which is like, pretty that's pretty impossible to
Yeah.
do. And even if we were to be very liberal and say it just requires two parents, that's pretty impossible.
Mhm. Yeah.
We need different generations. We need an auntie, we need an uncle, we need cousins, we need play cousins, we need, you know, and even our idea, and I say our, maybe again it's North American, that we're relying on one school, that we're
Mhm.
relying on one classroom,
Mm.
in
Yeah.
order to bring about this this student that is
Mhm.
fully realized. I think it's a sense of false entitlement.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I think that's what's driving moms crazy. I think that's what's
Mhm.
driving teachers up the wall, because everyone feels like it's only on them
Mhm.
rather than around the on the collective.
Mm. Wow. Before I even get into the challenges, since you brought it up, what's been that village for you? Because I've been
Right.
very strategic about constructing mine. I want to share that. I'm just curious as to
Yeah.
what has been that for you? Because I'm gonna guess you're probably been like me in terms of being very intentional.
Intentional. Yes. So, that is a really great question. I don't think that I've ever been asked, like, listing out, the village. So one is my parents are now, back in Boston.
Mhm.
They at first, they lived in Boston, they owned a home,
Mhm.
they retired to Georgia, and
Mhm.
then my husband, entered into international diplomacy and
Mm.
development.
Right. Remember
And
yesterday.
so he ended up traveling and working abroad.
Mhm.
And from there, I was I survived maybe a week or so, like, when it was just me and my daughter, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, no. This is
Yeah.
not gonna work." So, I called my parents. I said, "I know you have purchased a home in Georgia. I know that you're renting out Boston. I need you." And I am the last of 4.
Mhm.
My siblings will say, "Whatever Kiana wants," like Kiana gets, just because I'm the last born. But my parents literally said, "Okay."
Yeah. That's
They
nice.
will come back and move. They will move
Mm.
back. So that was the first pillar, is that I needed the older generation.
Mhm.
I knew that I needed the wisdom of
Mhm.
people who are older than me and who have been through the ringer,
Mhm.
been through the paces. So that was 1. 2, I am a woman of faith.
Mhm.
And so I belong to a church. My husband, my daughter, we, are intentionally raising our daughter in the church,
Mhm.
which my mother is a retired minister. She wouldn't have had it any other way. Um, but I have also come to it on my own.
Yeah.
Um, I have friends, who I have developed, through the church and through
Mhm.
life, through work,
Mhm.
and just keep them around. They are godparents to my child. Um, there's one particular group that's coming to mind now, the Black Girl Joy Book Club.
Mm.
Shout out to them. We are moms who have decided to intentionally expose our children to children's books that are authored by Black
Mhm.
women.
Mhm.
And we break our children up into 3 different age groups. I head
Mhm.
up middle group, who is always Amara. It includes my
Mhm.
daughter in it. Um, there's a younger group and then there's an older group. And
Mhm.
we just task ourselves to, and once a month, getting together and reading and discussing a
Wow.
book.
Nice.
There are other parts of the community, but yeah, the school community, I intentionally make the school community part of her community. I choose
Mhm.
her schools very deliberately.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
it is it takes a lot of thought.
A lot. And I know your school community is also very intentional,
Mm,
as is mine.
mhm, mhm. It
Um,
is. It
wow.
is.
Mhm.
Yeah, last year, Amara, I I I will say she was in a public school for the first few years of her life, and then, when my husband had another job that took him abroad, we actually decided to have my daughter to join him this time,
Mm.
and, she was in the 3rd grade, and so they went to Togo,
Mhm.
and she we put her in a French classroom, as full baptism by fire. I mean, it was full immersion.
Yeah.
She knew the word bonjour, and that was about it.
Mhm.
And, by the time she got to the end, it was, conversational. But when we got back, I realized that that environment was extremely good for her soul. I mean,
Mhm.
she literally was around kids who looked like her and who were
Nice.
also had that passion
Mhm.
and, that sparkle. I'm always
Mhm.
looking for sparkle in the eye.
Yeah.
So, here in Boston, we actually, was told by by the chief of technology, he was the chief of technology for Kidogo at the time, a board member of the Mother
Mhm.
Caroline Academy, which is a school for girls of color right
Mm.
here in Boston. I had I mean, I'd heard the name kind of floating around, but it didn't really dawn on me that
Mhm.
this would be an option for Amara until, we visited the school. Like,
Wow.
we walked in and those girls were like, just alive
Yeah.
and bushy-tailed and just sweet cherubs, and I was like, "Yep. This is this is where my daughter is going to go."
Wow.
And so she's flourished. We have to think
Awesome.
about eventually we've gotta transition her out, and that'll just be another hard discussion about where she's gonna go because there's no high school
Yeah.
that is the
That is
mother.
comparable.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no high school here in Boston that is comparable to the Mother Caroline. It doesn't
Mm.
exist.
Yeah.
And me as being a Spelman alumna, I have a lot of appreciation for single sex education.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't I am one of the most liberal minded people.
Mhm.
But I think what I have observed is that teachers, when they don't pay attention to their biases, they will pay attention to the boys. And
Mhm.
it's and girls that are well behaved will get
Mhm.
overlooked, and they will be treated as helpers
Mhm.
and as classroom aides
Mm.
more than nurtured for their brilliance.
Absolutely.
And
I can
that
see
is
that.
what,
Mhm.
I it's like fear unlocked, for
Yeah.
me.
I
It's just
understand.
it I and so her classroom, if there are squeaky wheels, and especially if there are male squeaky wheels, um, the tension just goes there, and they're
Mhm.
like, "You do not have to worry about Amara, she's so sweet, she's so kind, she's so gentle, she's so helpful, she's at age, she helps," and I'm like,
Yeah, she's a perfect housewife, future housewife. Absolutely. And the same goes for black kids in white classrooms. I've had conversations with parents because I took my son out of school at the time he was in a private school, and it served its purpose. The whole goal I had him in public school for a few weeks, and realize the you know public when school is not mixed in with particular type of um it's just not even a matter of play, it's a matter of what you're playing and what you're playing with. And so he's had amazing opportunities being in the private school. They had their own labs, science labs, STEM labs,
Mhm.
and the stuff they played with are stuff that would, help them develop later on.
Yeah.
But then there came a time when you get to that point, right? When you begin to see that he needs a different type of village to
Yeah.
help
Mhm.
promote not just his character, but to help promote him, his own
Mhm.
self concept.
Mhm.
And so at that point, I did take him out of school and homeschooled him for 2 years. And I found those to be rather, I mean, those no regrets. I mean, those were sometimes I
Yeah.
wish I could. I mean, even though he's doing well now, there part of me that wonder, but he's make wonder what else he could be working on, except that, he's doing well where he is and
Yeah. Yeah.
building, socially, but I've been very strategic. Um, but yeah, I was mentioning that to say, yeah, it's those conversations I had with homeschooling
Yeah.
moms who had also put their school kids in private schools, which usually are predominantly white, and oftentimes they end up in a, helper situation where they're helping everybody else achieve.
Mhm.
And it's not a case. I mean, look, when you explain things to kids, you learn a lot each other, but that's not the case. It's
Mm.
it's more almost as if, our kids are being channeled
Mm.
to however they're perceived. And that's what they're being prepared for.
Yeah.
And so, so much of this, because it's built into the character of individual, becomes built into the structure
Mm.
for our children. And so
Yeah.
that's what you and I are trying to combat in our
Absolutely. And
curriculum.
this is the one of the values, or is like a philosophy, that quality and culture can exist at the same time.
Mhm,
That there's I think there's and media plays a really fabulous role in giving a choice.
mhm,
You are either steeped in blackness, or you are competent. But blackness and competency, according to media, cannot exist. It's like physics. Two things cannot exist at the same time in the same place.
yeah.
And
Well,
for
I should say should not, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, we've seen it.
Right. Media
Right.
is telling that it should and it can't, and we're having to play mental gymnastics
Mhm,
to say that not only should blackness and competency and high quality and excellence and joy exist at the same time, but also it can, and also it must, for our own sense of self-worth,
mhm,
and also it does.
mhm.
Point final.
Right.
So it is in everything that Kidogo tries to do, we are positing and showing and demonstrating that blackness and high quality and excellence and joy exists. They are symbiotic. They are the same.
Mhm,
That black joy is just, they're not just two words, they just go together. Black excellence, they're not just two words, they actually are fused. You
mhm,
cannot uncouple.
mhm,
And I think that for the struggle is to be able to exist in this mindset,
mhm,
um, all the while receiving the messages that the mindset is completely false
mhm,
and that it's just a dream. And you're also trying to turn around and include, your child in that mindset,
mhm,
which has taken us decades to get to. At least it took
mm,
me decades to get, and we're
right.
trying to, you know, give it to our child, from the get go.
Mhm,
And I'll preface by saying, my parents did try. They did tell me that
mhm,
excellence and blackness exist in you at the same time, meaning
mhm,
me. Like, they told me that.
mhm,
And yet I know that I struggled with um seeing
mhm,
others in a way that the media wanted me to see them.
mhm.
Media
Yeah.
wanted me to see them as on top. They
Mhm,
wanted me to see them as rich. They wanted me to see them as deserving of that
Mhm.
richness, wealth, and high education. They wanted me to see them as deserving of all the good things that seemed to come their way.
Mhm.
I was never shown the underbelly of any, majority culture. I
Mhm.
wasn't I wasn't exposed to, um, the inner turmoil, strife, or anything like that. I was given a very pristine picture.
Right. You didn't get to see
And
that there's a white glove there.
yes, and
Many white gloves. Mhm.
it's really intentional.
Yeah.
That's very intentional. Media is very intentional.
Right.
Nothing is by accident in
It's
media.
it supports a narrative that it was earned, right? It
Mhm,
supports the narrative that people worked so hard to get there.
mhm,
But they don't get to see the forces at work that work for them and the forces at work that work against us.
mhm,
Um, and it's interesting because, as many educators try to fight against, we get to see firsthand, especially trying to push forth ideas, right?
mhm,
And get to see it pushed back because we're not supposed to be those ones to necessarily lead in cutting edge ideas. I can tell you when part of the feedback I've gotten for some of my work, and I have work I've tried to publish since 2016 that hasn't
mhm,
gotten published.
mm,
Um, and the things that are starting to come out now. And even if I publish it now, 10 years later, it'll still be considered cutting edge because we're still at the same place.
mm,
Well, I'm not ready to tackle it again, but one of the things that happened recently too with a curricula I implemented, and really writing about, and this time I invited a team of researchers, and we wrote about this. And one of the questions was, what did you do to prepare everybody to have these type of dialogues and all these things,
mm,
and to get to that point, and so I couldn't figure out what did that mean, right?
mhm,
That's one thing we were trying to ask, and what does this person mean? Because people aren't used to associating those type of rich dialogues with our students. They see them as kind of prepped. They don't realize a lot of times that it's in their own lack of ability to,
mm,
um, in other words, what you perceive is what you're going to aim for,
mhm,
right? In your goals. And sometimes you're limited in your own thinking as well. You just don't know you are, right?
yeah,
Because they're supposed to be the limited ones. And so I'm very intentional with working with our children with these
mm,
studies that I'm doing, just to show. And it's amazing that that could be cutting edge, right? It's amazing that showing that our children are happily and joyfully learning,
mhm, mhm,
it's cutting edge, and people don't realize that's because that supports, um, a type of structure and economic pipeline and
mhm.
gives people a sense of purpose. Um
Yeah. That actually reminds me that, I was in a fellowship, a couple of years ago, the Joan Gance Cooney, um, Center. They had a Well-being by Design fellowship for, tech designers who design tech for kids.
Mhm,
And one of the one of their values that they really wanted to promote and have us to understand the worth is to help have children to co-design with you.
mm,
Joan Gance Cooney, Joan Gance was one of the founders of Sesame Street,
mm,
and she and just the value of children's work, that organization does. They understand that children are quite brilliant,
mhm,
that they are they're they're very clear with what they want,
mhm,
and
right,
and they also are very expressive,
mhm,
and they can have ideas, that are uninhibited
mhm,
by bad experience because they just haven't had a whole lot. They're
right,
fresh, have really, really fresh brains.
mhm, yeah,
And it's a humbling they were really asking, adults to be humble
mhm,
and to say, "Listen to kids." Like, sometimes they really can know what they're talking about.
right,
And that's one of the things when I say that parenting is humbling, sometimes
yeah,
I have had to
Very.
acknowledge
Mhm.
that, my daughter was right in some
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And when it comes to tech items, tech devices, I am a Luddite. I did not think that I would actually ever put myself in that category because I was always customer service for my parents. But now she's customer service for me. I
Definitely.
hold my phone and I'm like, wait, wait, um, wait, how do I get the Bluetooth on? And she's like, Mom,
Mhm.
she just, so, but yeah, and I think what you're hitting on as well is that, having conversations that are deep, having conversations that, are quote unquote complicated,
Mhm.
that are intricate, that children are quite capable of doing that,
Mhm.
especially if they haven't, been dulled
Mm.
by,
Yeah.
noxious media.
Yeah. Yeah, especially. Wow. All right. So I'm curious about what are some, unique challenges you faced really trying to raise your child with a high self-concept, What are some things that came up and what did you do?
So one of the things that we started to do was co-watch. We co-watch,
No.
shows, because of lack of time, I couldn't vet or pre-vet,
Mhm.
a lot of content, and
Yeah.
so we watch at the same time, and then I would have to pause and say, "We need to talk about this."
Mhm.
Uh, Sometimes, Amara was okay with that. She didn't mind. She was, I guess, in the right mood to be receptive to
Mhm.
thinking about things critically, and then other times it completely frustrated her. She was like, "I just want to watch the show." Like, I really, oh my god,
Yeah.
just like, mom, you're being mom. So, I think we eventually, got to a rhythm because we would only watch, shows while I did her hair. Um,
Mm.
and so co-watching was more of multitasking for us, and it was
Right.
more of like, at least let me, get you to focus on one thing.
Mhm.
Um, but it is difficult though. I mean,
Mhm.
there's no two ways about it. I mean, I now have to ask her a lot.
Mm.
"Hey, what are you watching? Tell me about it. Give me a synopsis. Did anything make you feel uncomfortable? Are there any questions,
Mhm.
that you have?"
Well.
Books have been also and she is a bibliophile, and she really, really enjoys books.
Mm.
So she will reread books 2 or 3 times. And so she does more reading than she does watching.
Mhm.
Um, there have been topics in books though that
Mhm.
have, you know, it just because it is a book, it doesn't mean that it is necessarily more wholesome. So
Nope.
we've had to we've had to really discuss, some things. And I've for her as a girl, there have been some topics that I've been slow
Mm.
to chat about. But I think that this summer I've decided to kind of go headfirst into talking about, things related to sex.
Mhm.
I I'm I want to be very careful and very intentional.
Yeah.
Um, but what I realize is that there are girls and boys around her who have been exposed to a whole lot more, than she has.
Yeah.
And she's starting to bring me questions
Mhm.
that are teetering on that topic. And I'm like, I'm not ready. Oh
I
my God.
know. Oh my
I'm
god.
so not ready.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
But, I need to strengthen her. I
Mhm.
I realized that we can't wait until the last minute.
Mhm.
She needs to have a very strong sense of self and control and agency
Mm.
over what happens to her body.
Yeah.
and those are and that does not come from, a mother whose mom is the word, that has to come from a very open channel,
Mm.
and, I've gotta open it. She's and it is so, things about, like, period and,
Mhm.
what is the menstrual cycle and what does that mean for the body and like, I've gotta go into all of it. And
Yeah.
so this is the summer. I mean, other moms, they've done it a long time ago. Other
Mhm.
moms, they're not gonna ever do it. Other moms, they're gonna wait until high school.
Mhm.
But for me, she's old enough to understand that there's something there.
Yeah.
She doesn't she does not understand what it is.
Right.
She's clueless, but she knows that there's a something.
Mhm.
And um yeah, the, and again, media grooms.
Mhm. Yeah.
It is a grooming machine.
Mhm.
And we were
Tremendously.
watching, my niece exposed her to Hannah Montana
Mhm.
on Disney or what it like, and that's an old show,
Mhm.
but those girls they have crushes, they
Mhm.
find boys to be cute,
Yeah. They're
like
for
all of the stuff
teenagers.
is Huh?
They're for older teens, really.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
it's targeted towards a preteen.
It is. It's the most innocent out there, but it's
Yeah,
really, adult content,
it really is.
masquerading as children's, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, most of it is, almost all of it is, and, because we don't
I
have, like I said, it's
Amara didn't watch this scene, but, I remember a scene that I was watching with, I have a host of nieces and nephews. This was years ago, and it still has stuck in my mind. It was a Nickelodeon show, don't know what show it was.
Mhm.
A group of children went to a party. They arrived at the door, and it wasn't at a house, it was, like, at a club.
Mhm.
There was a stanchion with a, a bouncer. The bouncer was like, You, and you. You guys can come in." Opens the stanchion, and, like, the nerdy kids were like, "Wait, what about me?" And somehow, maybe later, they got entered into the club. They're dancing, flopping around, like, with no rhythm, just flopping around, and you realize why. They go to a bar. And the kid was like, "I need a milk on the rocks." She takes this or he, I don't remember the gender, takes the milk, downs it back, slams it down on the bar, and starts flopping around the way the other kids were flopping around. That's grooming.
Mhm.
Like, that was
Mhm.
I was like, "We cannot watch the show." And,
Yeah.
my niece was like, "Why not?" And I was like, "This is completely trash. This
Oh
is
my gosh.
trash." Children
It's so my son was watching this influencer, all these influencer guys, you know who they are. And this one guy, and I sit down and watch these shows to see what it is he's watching. Um, this influencer was talking about all the ways he conned people. He would go and first of all, look, the one that was a little bit the most innocent one was the one where he would go at the end of the day at all of these places to get free food, to see who would give them free food because they're getting rid of food. Fine. But then he starts to talk about how he, you know, is trying to see if he can get free food if he makes them think that he's a food critic. And I was just showing, and then there were some others. I was like, this guy is a criminal mind. I told my son, it's like he thinks like a criminal. You can't do
Mm,
what he's doing. People get
mm,
arrested for that. But this is
mm.
what they're showing, whoever's paying him to advertise, whatever. and promoting these guys because
Yeah.
they're, a lot of them are aimless and don't really fit into the norm. So you find a place for them, even if it's at a cost for everyone, because they're really important and they're symbolically really important. But I look at that, I was just so mad. I was like, it's like you're teaching these kids to be criminal,
Mm,
but you are supposed to be some, social media influencer, and you're sitting down there. Everybody, the staff is waiting on you because you're impersonating a food critic. And so it's like one illegal activity after the other. I
yeah.
was like, how are they promoting this criminal stuff on YouTube? By you're encouraging kids. I mean, this guy
Um,
thinks like a criminal. Like, how
right.
could you not see that?
Yeah, that is, and I think there are a lot of books who and shows that also promote just really bad behavior. Amara reads a lot of books that are designed for her age group,
Hmm.
but the behavior that is exhibited is not anything that I would want her to emulate.
Right.
And so I feel like, I've had, a struggle not just with the TV content, screen content, but with the book content in finding content that is,
Mm.
that
Tough.
pushes her scholastically.
Hmm.
Let's say that, like, her vocabulary is
Hmm.
fabulous. Her ability to comprehend complex texts
Hmm.
is on a wonderful at a she's is really on a wonderful trajectory, but I'm s it's really been hard for me to describe, but I want her to read more complexity
Mm.
in the text, in the
Right.
write I want her
Hmm.
to read elevated writing, but I don't want her to read, quote, unquote, "more mature behavior."
Right. Yeah, I know what you
So
mean.
I'm screaming for writers
Mhm,
that can write with complexity, write
mhm,
with detail, and write with really rich vocabulary
mhm,
to go deeply in emotion and the complexity of relationships
mhm,
and to dig into, like, the social structure and feelings and all those interpersonal things that happen.
mhm.
I want I want a writer to be able to do that, but without coming out on the other end with her
Without
thinking that she's
releasing their own garbage, you think?
Huh?
Without releasing their own garbage?
Right.
Good luck. I don't
Mhm.
think most people feel the need to deal with themselves first, and that's the uniqueness of how I approach this work,
Mhm.
because you have to deal with yourself first. Otherwise, the writing simply becomes therapeutic. It
Yeah.
becomes less enjoyable if you're writing for that particular goal without the therapeutic aspect. But at
Hmm.
the same time, if you're trying to write for children and you're releasing your garbage there, it just becomes complex,
Hmm.
right? And so I say good luck. It's funny. My husband worries more about how little my son read than I do, because I know
Mhm.
where he is, and then he's like, yeah, but he's reading other things, like
Mhm.
when he had this idea to fix up his own computer, and I was like, sure, I support it, because he had to read up all the instructions or whatever manuals. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
and then that was a concern for me, and at one point I started even giving him, because I was concerned about him not doing much reading, in school, and so I would just have him read some of my chemistry books and stuff. Not as concerned anymore, because they're you build your comprehension skills in other
Mhm.
ways. Like,
Mhm.
he's into cooking, so he has to really read and figure
Mhm.
out these instructions and these recipes. Because I did prompt him and say, you need to find another hobby other than watching these influencers, you
Yeah.
know. And so these influencers become an opportunity to really speak out against, and to help him build awareness. And usually I have to draw his dad in to give his opinion, and his dad was just flabbergasted by what this listening to this guy. His dad was upset too. He was like, what is this guy talking about? And And so we've been through phases where, we cut the TV off or we do things and um and I keep warning him and reminding him that as he gets older he'll be watching less, not more, because
Yeah.
he thinks he's going to be watching more. If you're
Yeah.
becoming a productive member of society,
You
it's
just don't have
just
time for
that's
it,
just
right?
not the trajectory, right?
Right.
I know it's not the way everybody thinks in terms of, but we're just preparing him for that mindset.
Mhm.
When you become productive, you become less. It means,
Mhm.
we're letting you watch to understand, so he knows.
Mm.
Right, and
Mhm.
then we can talk about it, and we could see the effect of we talk about addiction too, we see the effect of the addiction, it's like, well, you see, this strong reaction mean if you have a strong reaction, it means you need it, if you don't, then it's not as important to you, so
Right.
we're very intentional about, building that level of awareness because, what you need for raising kids requires us as parents to be attuned to ourselves, right?
Yeah. It is it's a hard nut to crack. I mean, I think you make a good point about like other things that other than like novels, what is she reading? She tends to she actually likes um Minecraft.
Mhm,
And so she's been building her
mhm.
worlds for like this last year.
Yeah.
Um But then I'll notice that she'll watch shows on YouTube that are made in Minecraft, like in the Minecraft world.
Mhm.
And I I like I listen to it and I'm like, why is this interesting to you? Like what is it
What
about
is the addictive
this
feature, you
show?
know?
Um
I know, my son used to do that too. He'll watch his guides talk about what they did in these worlds, and many
yeah.
did we watched them, I think, mostly because we didn't have him play as much, right? So he
Mm,
substituted it by watching,
yeah. No,
and then he'll go try it out later, but that's literacy, right?
mhm,
The ability
mhm,
to
mhm.
understand and to be able to observe and then take it back
Mm, mhm, mhm.
and apply it too, right?
Yeah,
Um
that is true. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. What are some next steps for you? Like, when you're thinking about the future and, what it is you'd like to see and accomplish. Um and even based on what do you think we need? What do you think black
Um,
children need that maybe other children don't? What are your thoughts in terms of trajectory?
I do have a lot of dreams. I do dream a lot.
Okay, let's talk about those
Um,
dreams.
you
I
know,
have a
I
lot
think
too.
yeah, I think that you know, PBS is a really gold standard. I think that they've developed an entire network of
Mhm,
programming that has been worldwide considered to be high level.
mhm,
There's a level of craft,
mhm,
care, science.
mhm,
The science of media. I think that they have, and then the science of learning. I think that they have at least projected a brand that says
mhm,
we've got a lock on the science of learning and entertainment.
mhm,
I think that there needs to be a Black PBS,
mhm.
and I
I
think
agree.
that, um, and I want Kidogo to be the part of that. I wanted I it can't,
Mhm.
again, we were talking before about whether it's, North America gives us the idea that we need to, do things by ourselves. I don't think
Yeah.
that Kidogo should be like the Black PBS. I think that
Mhm,
it should be a part of Black PBS.
mhm. Yeah.
Let Kidogo, say we've got a lock on the preschool part, and like, and we'll have
Mhm,
partners to, help us bring content that is for
mhm.
the older kids.
Wow.
if we do kind of age with the kid, we might just stop at like, preteen or whatever.
Mhm.
But in terms of, how we grow.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that we need to build our own table there.
Yep. I agree.
And uh and invite who we think should be a part of that movement.
Mhm.
And it should be diaspora wide
Mhm.
because we're not a monolith.
Mhm.
We have different cultures, religions, outlooks, but I think there can be a through line though.
Mhm.
I know one of my through lines is, acceptance of people of all kinds of differences.
Mhm.
You know, my version of Black PBS cannot stand for any intolerance, but
Mhm.
there has to be room. There has
Mhm.
to be room for all of us. You can imagine a show that is written in Haitian Creole, a show
Yeah.
that is written in Shui. Then like there's going to be shows that are built for everyone.
Mhm.
So I think it would be just
Wow.
amazing.
Mhm. Wow. It's amazing to see someone sharing a similar dream. I
Mm,
even, I didn't think of it as a Black PBS, but I thought of it as 1, Black, and 2, just educational.
mhm.
But yeah, I did have PBS in mind. I did have National Geographic in mind.
Yeah. Oh,
And so
National Geographic would be great.
yeah, and, yeah, and I've done some work with National Geographic too, so,
Mhm.
um it's, I think there are several of us that I could think that have that not only have that vision, but have been working towards that vision. I think
Mm,
eventually what I see is, maybe several of us banding together. That's what I envision as we develop things on our own because, um, otherwise it will die, right? And,
exactly.
which I think happens a lot. Either we die or we get taken over and then
Yeah.
get reimagined into someone else's vision that doesn't have our interest in mind. Um,
Yeah.
and s Mhm. But,
Yeah. It's really that is really disappointing. I mean, you think of BET. I think that BET is and it is both an example of success in that they achieved a level of mainstreamness.
Mhm.
Um, they're on it's on major platforms and
Yeah.
but in order for them to reach the next level, they had to be bought by Viacom. And
Mhm.
and that Um, I don't know all the intricacies
Right.
of the purchase, but, it relinquished control. When you think of our magazines, you think of Jet, Essence,
Mm.
Ebony, Jet is no longer exists.
Mm.
Um, and
Right.
so we have made really huge advancements in media,
Mhm.
but sometimes what it has required. And I'm not saying that of the ones that I've just named, but
Mhm.
sometimes what it has required when you think of individual artists, for instance, it has required a distance from our core.
Mhm.
It has required um, a projection of stereotypes
Mhm.
extremely harmful to
Mhm.
us
Yeah.
and
To pander. Yeah.
to
To
pander
sell.
and
Mhm.
to sell because
Yeah.
it's about profit.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know whether it's a physics thing, but like some I just heard somewhere that like are the natural progression of energy is to disorder
Yeah.
and it is
Entropy.
to entropy, is it called?
Yeah, it's a
Yep.
tendency of it's funny. I haven't taught this in years, but a tendency for things to evolve into chaos,
Right.
or to yeah.
And I think that that happens metaphysically, that
Mhm.
happens mentally, that happens, um, you know, politically. It happens in every aspect of this life. And
Mhm.
so the what makes the most money
Mhm.
is it happens to be also the least edifying.
Mhm.
And that is actually pretty spiritual, it's a really
Mhm.
wide path
Right.
that, that most are gonna, but, we're being asked to take the narrow. And that's, like, impossible for some people
Yeah.
because,
Mhm.
the wide path is just so enticing and it's
Mhm.
so easy.
Mhm.
And for some artists who, want to take that easy path, they strip their soul of all the values that they were raised with. They're
Mhm.
stripped of all of the good lyrics. They're stripped of, the
Right.
common the intelligent commentary, and they're left with shakes and
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah. Right. And for sometimes people though sometimes confuse that narrow path as simply being exclusionary as opposed to having certain values, right? Which
Right.
is
And
but I have this thing, time will always tell. Right? Time will always tell what we need to come back to, and where we need to get started and where we need to end. But it's yeah.
I think the exclusionary aspect of what you just said is, the fault. I think that's Christianity's fault.
Mm.
I think that,
In
I
what
I
way?
think when you look at what it actually says, and I'm talking about the Bible, when you look at
Mhm. Yeah,
actually
I understand.
is love your neighbor. That's it. Who It
Yeah.
doesn't say love your white neighbor. It doesn't say
Mhm.
love your straight neighbor. It doesn't say only
Mhm.
love, your other Christian neighbor. It's love
Right.
your neighbor. It, there was no qualification, there was no condition, there was nothing in there that says
Mhm.
that we are to be exclusionary. That
Mhm.
is that is that is simply not. It's a bastardization of the word, and it is a warping and a misconstruction, misconstruing, and it's a distortion. And I think that uh and it has hurt the faith.
Yeah.
Um
Well, a lot of times it's because, when we use everything, right? Whether
mhm,
it's the Bible, whether it's books,
mhm,
movies, TVs, to accomplish our own goals, right? Whether it's
mhm.
institutions, societies. One of the things I do write about in my book is the idea of how by design we've made sure that our neighbors are those we want to love so that we don't have to love those who are not our neighbor, right?
Oh, that is really
And
good.
so
That's
that
what gentrification and,
yeah.
the suburbs and
Mhm.
redlining.
That allows you to feel a sense of righteousness,
Mm,
or a
mhm,
sense of you never really get tested, so you get to feel
mhm,
good about yourself. Everybody gets to feel good about themselves, right?
mhm.
Doing things quote unquote right in their little bubble.
Yeah,
So all of that is by design. I
really.
had the luxury, I mentioned before, of going to these talks about urbanization and urban planning, and you get to see everything that goes into the way neighborhoods are thought about. What you put in neighborhoods are thought about. Where they're put is thought about. Who gets access to land and who gets
God,
to live in a high rise and who gets confined to a small space. That all
yeah,
of that people don't realize. It's part of the planning.
it really is. It really is. I live
So
in Boston, and there is a study, that talks about the health disparities of those who live 2 miles apart from each other. So you
Mhm.
have Back Bay, which is a very posh downtown neighborhood of Boston. Boston has
Mhm.
like 11 neighborhoods, and their life expectancy is one age.
Mhm.
It's late 80s or something like that. I can't think of the exact number,
Mhm.
but then you think of the life expectancy of a person in Roxbury, which is another neighborhood
Mhm.
of Boston, and they are only 2 miles apart, but decades apart in terms of the life expectancy, and it's just
Mhm.
it's and then you think of the disparity of income or net worth, and that was another study that talked about, the net worth of, an average white family in Boston is like 200 plus thousand. The net worth of a average Black family is $8, and that is by design.
Mhm.
That is absolutely by design, and even in those numbers, um well, how data is weaponized is not allowing for the people who are outside of those exceptions to live in their grandeur and to live, with a sense of dignity.
Mhm.
So $8 gets impugned to me. I'm like, that
Right.
doesn't,
And
that
you get
doesn't,
to
it doesn't have to apply to we're talking about average. There's,
right.
you know, um,
You get
and
to impose
so
additional taxes, right? Because you get to control
yeah.
those taxes, and so you get to make sure that that area remains poor as well, um,
Exactly,
by
exactly.
taxing them more and pretending that they're poor without talking about the fact that you're taxing the poor more. And I'm not talking about just numbers. We're talking about, I mean, we can get into it. We can get into the poor neighborhoods that pay higher property taxes even,
Absolutely,
and the richer
absolutely,
neighborhoods, which some of them will be shocking. Um,
absolutely, absolutely. It's all there. It's all there in the data. The data,
yeah.
um, it
Mhm.
doesn't it doesn't lie. If
Right.
if the data has been packaged in a way that tells the truth. I mean, data can be manipulated as well, but
Right. Well,
um,
that remember that's the first thing that was attacked. The data. When you wanna change the story, you change the data. But
yeah, yeah.
what do you wanna leave the audience with?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the our problems and tackling the problems. We are building solutions. We are and so I believe that Kidogo Productions is a solution.
Mhm.
I believe that we have to start education when they are young.
Absolutely.
90% of a child's brain is formed before they're 5.
Mhm.
They're sponges, and so we need to be able to give them content that is worthy
Mhm.
of their learning.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're trying to do.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And you're gonna share the link with me so I can share it out as well.
Yes, yes, I will. Yep, kidogoproductions.com. Kidogo is a Swahili word that means little, and so Kidogo is exactly what we're doing. It's little kids.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And if you like this episode, please like it and follow so you can be alerted for the next episode. And thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Come.